So we have a special guest today on the podcast, on this Mindfully Gay podcast. My partner Cole is joining us today.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Nick. Jerry's sitting next to me.
John.
Right over there. Our topic today kind of came up naturally before we started. Cole, my partner, had some questions about kind of this retreat that we're hosting for Mindfully Gay. And so it kind of led us into some good questions that we thought we might address in this podcast.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, what I liked about the conversation that led to this the conversation we're going to have as a byproduct of talking to you and just the questions that you're asking, knowing that they're very core questions. And it just seems like a natural assumption that our viewers who are trying to figure out what Mindfully Gay is about,
right,
or what the retreats are about, are probably asking themselves the same question. And so it's like, we're going to take advantage of your fresh perspective.
Yeah. It's funny that we were downstairs chatting about this, getting ready to set up, and the topic was going to be open relationships, and I was going to give my perspective on it. But then we got into this different thing where I'm loving the whole vibe of the lodge and the get together, but I wasn't really 100% sure on what it was like. What is going on here? What is our objective and the goal? And it's really, my understanding now is it's to find our own spirituality and be able to express ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But let's back up though, because
Yeah.
I mean, when we first sat down, like, what were some of the first questions that you posed to, that we can rehash here, that our listeners can gain some information about, about the retreat? What was your first, what's the first question that pops up?
The first question that popped up when Nick was mentioning that, he met you and all about this vibe. And I'm like, what is, I'm like, it's an American Indian vibe. It's a spiritual vibe. Was it, is it a sex thing? Is it like a cult?
Right.
I had no idea, because there was it was like so many cool things going on. I just wasn't sure. And I thought to myself, anyone else coming in should know the basics and what the thesis is before they come into it, because it makes you a little nervous. Like when I first, and I'm like, what's going on here? What's happening? Yeah. So you were at the point where it all, everything that's going on. You get it. You're the leader of the whole vibe of spirituality. Whereas, and so the language, and I don't even know the alphabet yet. I was saying,
yeah. Yeah.
So I need to learn the basics of what's going on. And you thought that was interesting. So sharing what happens specifically, let's say at a lodge,
Right.
what the dolls mean, why do we do the dolls? And it was a way to kind of like exercise your demons. I thought, like, you make the doll and you put the things that are bothering you in life that you're trying to, get rid of. And this is like a physical and spiritual way to do it, by creating these little dolls and then putting them in the fire and getting rid of them. So then you're kind of, you're free and clean of these negative energies, and then you're open to the positive energies of the spirit world.
Right.
And I say spirit world because I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Like the good vibes.
Heaven.
Yeah, and it's not specifically an American Indian, the gods, or Catholicism or Mormonism. It's what you, I guess, were raised to understand is what God is. So if you come to the lodge and you're praying or chanting or doing this, you're doing this in the name of what your positive energy is. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. So I'm going to back up a couple of places here. First of all, with Mindfully Gay, we originally started out as Queer Spirit, and we had a yoga master and myself. And I was bringing into that formula of Queer Spirit this history that is now almost 30 years long of having worked very closely with indigenous and traditional healers and medicine people from literally around the world. And in these relationships, these people they weren't like workshops, learn how to do this. For instance, it took me 10 years of working with my elder, who was a Ute medicine man from Roosevelt, Utah, who taught and mentored me in how to carry the medicine and the energy of the sweat lodge.
Okay. And then it made such a profound something in you that you really wanted to share that because it really helped you.
Yeah, over the years, what eventually adapted is John and I then connected, and part of my journeys brought me into relationship with the Radical Fairies and Harry Hayes. And so that very much impacted my sense of responsibility, even to my queer tribe, to say, you know, how is it that I'm learning these things as someone who is not indigenously connected to them? I have these elders teaching me, how do I bring this to my queer brothers and sisters? And that's where Queer Spirit started. And John and I had connected and shared a similar bond. His path has been yoga and meditation, which is, this is me describing it for you, but I think it's physical and spiritual for John.
Right. And if I may interject, just to give people an idea of, well, how does yoga fit into this? You know, these seem like very different traditions, and they are essentially on the table. But if we kind of step back and look at the whole picture, there's a lot of similarities. So I feel like what I bring to this, to the table, you know, with indigenous work, spirituality, queer community, this yogic piece, because for me, just like you were saying, Cole, that, you know, because I was practicing yoga, something shifted in me. I was like, this feels good. Not only physically, but something else is happening in me. My mood was changing. I was seeing the world a little bit more differently. I felt more positive. So something was feeling good inside me, to the point where I wanted to start teaching it, because I felt like I can't be the only one benefiting from this wonderful goodness. I want to share this.
Pay it forward, yeah.
Right, pay it forward. So it wasn't necessarily directed toward a queer community. It was just in general. And so as Jerry and I were connected and wanted to create this community, it's like, oh, how about this yogic piece? Because this is how it influenced me. I think it might work well in like retreats or workshops or whatever we put together, you know, so that other people can also experience, hey, here's another way to kind of tap into, you know, goodness and, you know, releasing, you know, bad vibes or whatever it is, old stories, whatever it is, and reveal within yourself like who you really are, your authenticity.
And if I can, I'm sorry, I have to now, because I completely, no, I totally, completely agree. And I think I now have a perspective of what I can bring to this situation, to offer to this group, and that it's different than both, but it is a path towards both of what you are bringing, and specifically through physical activity. So I'm going to be coaching, you know, small groups. We're going to be doing some exercising together. And the way that I've always looked at it is it's this space that I create for people to practice, to try something that maybe they've told themselves they couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And through doing that, it's a development of confidence. And you get to this place where you get more confidence in yourself. And just like you're saying, you start to experience and understand the world around you in a different way. And the thing that I've always spoken to throughout that process of getting consistency with the struggles of training is that it becomes this act of self-love. Mm-hmm. And that is quite a shift from, I think, where most people are in this world, most gay men feeling isolated, feeling that they can't connect to anyone, including themselves. One of the first steps to doing that, to making yourself open to these new connections, to these other paths of spirituality and getting to an elevated place, is first beginning with an understanding of how to love yourself. And I think that getting diligent with a physical practice is kind of the first foundation of doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once you're not wrestling with those demons, those insecurities, once you get to even one point where you feel good about yourself, about something that you did based on whatever, yoga, exercise,
a 30-second plank.
Yeah. So now you're not bothering with those pre-programs, the things that you're worried about, the insecurities. So the more of those you chip away, the more you can be open to becoming more spiritual. So it sounds like you're all bringing it together.
But think of it as the body, mind, spirit triad, right? but I don't think that, like what he just said about self-love, right? That is a pathway to spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because when I first, you guys know this, so I've been on this health journey with Nick, which is interesting. I've worked with doctors, I've worked with other coaches and what have you. But I think what impressed me in working with Nick was there was some kind what he just said about that idea of self-love and that can do it kind of energy was very different than a coach who knows how to count to 12.
Yeah.
Right? Because, well, we question your ability to count to 12 sometimes, but but his ability to kind of tap into people's can-do attitudes, I think, was a critical piece to what we're creating here, so that people can get in touch with their body either through yoga and exercise or even in a lodge. Like the body, mind, spirit thing is all interrelated.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I feel like I'm still trying to understand what you guys are doing. I get it. I'm trying to put it into words. So I feel like I'm a member of, let's call it like the lost tribe. I feel like I'm a gay man, grew up with Catholicism, and you know, I felt like God is good, is a good thing, but man's interpretation of that, you can't be gay, it's bad, you're going to hell, all that shit. That's just the men interpreting what God would never say.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I'm like one of those
politics.
lost tribe members that's hopeful and
Mm.
optimistic, because I know in my heart God's not a homophobe. Whoever my God, whoever the God is that I worship or that you worship, they're not hate-based homophobes. This is just the interpretation of the priests or whatever
Yeah.
that have done, to manipulate people to get what they want, power, and do what they want.
I think the worst thing that ever happened to spirituality was
Religion
Yeah.
and politics.
Yeah, and politics.
But
Well,
for
no,
sure.
according to Catholicism, God sent his only son down to earth to protect us from religion. I mean, literally.
Uh-huh.
So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And as far as what I was taught as a kid.
And so what we're trying to do with Mindfully Gay and what we tried to do with Queer Spirit was create community that was multifaceted, that created space for body, mind, and spirit, and trying to use the tools of what I do professionally as a therapist and that John has done as a psychologist, what I've done interpersonally in this journey with these indigenous practices and rituals and ceremonies, is I've recognized how empowering it has been in my life. I've seen it be very empowering in other people's lives. And to create a weekend container where we create community so that your version of spirituality and your version of spirituality, that it all comes together in a way that we build meaningful connections, not only to those that we're in the community with, but just with ourselves and our sense of, I can own and engineer what is uniquely mine. I would argue that even as queer folks, through a lot of these different traditions, again, the reframe about who we are as queer people is we should think of it as a birthright responsibility. Like as a gay person, I have a responsibility to show up in the world and to influence it with my unique perspective and experience and connectedness with whoever, other men.
So it's a way to help us, someone like me, us, to tap into not just the sexual vibe of being gay, because that's really kind of what we've been pigeonholed in. It's being gay is just about sex, and it's not. It's about connection, and the way you're going to get that connection with another human being is to make sure that you have that open spirituality in you, to make sure that you are
connection with self.
Yeah. Right.
You love
It
yourself.
makes sense.
Yeah. And so I totally expect when people, like, we'll do a sweat lodge ceremony as part of the retreat. And I bring that sweat lodge ceremony out with the permission of the elders and teachers I've worked with. But I don't think everyone will connect with it.
Yeah.
Right. But they may find that connection in a meditative pose that John's going to offer.
Yeah.
Or they may have an experience doing an exercise with Nick.
With ball slams.
Yeah. I mean, but we kind of laugh about that, but just the other day we were doing ball slams. You remember I told you.
And you saw Jesus.
I said last summer I couldn't even do
Yes,
this.
for sure.
And
you have, please admit that
Ball
when
slams
you did
are an
that,
exercise.
it's an exercise. But listen, but when you did that, did you appreciate yourself in the moment?
I did.
Like,
I could see myself in the mirror. I was like, fuck.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, I
I love
am.
that.
You
Love
touch
it.
yourself a little bit in the mirror when you're looking. Yes. No, but that's
That's
it.
what we
It's-
want. That's
But
what
it
we
is
want.
it is about getting to a place where you can not be so disgusted with yourself and so upset with you being gay and whatever. You actually embrace it. You start, and that's what I've started to do with this work that we're doing in this podcast. That's why
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for it. Because just the other time we were talking, the previous podcast, we were talking about what's good about being gay, and I had no answers for it until we got through the work, and I got there in my mind, and that is what I hope to share with others, because I know they're coming to game night. I've met some of them. I know they're in a similar place. And if we can just, like you said, create this container and we come into it and we get vulnerable and we talk about our problems and we understand them and we respect them and we're empathetic towards each other, and then we get in some yoga with some ball slams and some spirituality, it's the secret sauce to start loving yourself. And that's the real, like, that's the gift that we can share with others in our community. Once we get to that place with ourselves, then we can pay it forward and we can bring it to others.
What it does is gives people actual hope.
Yes.
Hope that it's not
Absolutely.
just,
Sure.
oh, I can't get laid on the apps.
Right.
and
I don't
can't
have a
meet the
6-pack. I
guy.
hate myself.
And
It's
you
not,
know,
it's,
yeah. So
right.
to have that hope,
Mm-hmm.
and how you achieve that hope is to teach people how to regain who they are
Yes.
spiritually.
How to appreciate.
How
who
to,
they are.
how to really kind of love yourself, and
Yep.
how to be open to talking about your insecurities and moving forward and be able to make connections that are not just based around getting laid.
Objectifying.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know this idea of community shows when we do a sweat lodge, and I'll just kind of explain. There's a fire pit, and then there's the actual place of the lodge, which is a dome-shaped area. And when you go into a lodge, you put the hot rocks in there. It makes it really warm. Well, some people don't have the physical ability to get on the ground and go into the lodge. Or maybe they're claustrophobic, or maybe they're afraid of the heat. And what's interesting is most of us go into the lodge, but there may be people for various reasons who don't go into the lodge, but they'll sit by the fire,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll help keep the fire going,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll come to the door and they'll offer whatever prayer they want to offer to be part. Like, the sense of community is varied to those who are deep in the belly, if you will, and then those who are in supportive places in that community. To look at it, it's a sense of people coming together in varied ways that accentuate their own strengths and their own capacities.
And I'm sorry, I have to say how the similarities are in group fitness, because I see it the same way. I'm thinking about, running a program with several people where we have different stations, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Everyone's going to be different in how they can approach the exercise. So I have to have regressions. I have to have different options so that those people, just like you're saying, maybe they don't go into lodge. Maybe they're holding space. They're holding it. They're praying. They're offering something. Everyone can still show up. It's still for everyone. You still have that opportunity to come forward and do what you can do, to contribute what you can do. And it's this synergy. It's still part of the, this amazing collective energy that's there. It's just, it's what's right for that individual in that time.
Talk about a tough crew to work on. I mean, gay people have just been so fucking psychologically tortured for so many reasons and so many ways from, you know, the negative straight people and the self-loathing shit that happens, and the other gay people that have just been harassed and tortured and not made the connection, and then they become bitter and, you know, they attack other gay people. So we really do need this.
Well,
we really do need this reconnection with kindness and spirituality and friendship, and, you know, that's what this is all about. I'm literally now just getting it.
Well, and look, the trauma response, if you will, from that history has been, we internalize the homophobia that we live under. We internalize it.
Yes.
Because then when I look at you, we've talked about this in other, I see you as an object. I see you as, I project my self-loathing or my self-shame or my guilt, I project it on you. So I suspect the worst out of you, right? And so it becomes this vicious cycle. And what's interesting, I noticed this once, I had this many years ago. I had a group where men would have to come together, basically of court order, because they were busted for cruising. And it was just a mini little group.
How fucked up is that to begin with?
Well, yes, but we were able to have a remedy to it. It was a very short term, like 6 weeks. But the whole premise behind that was these guys were going to the park to suck each other's dicks.
Because that's the only connection they could make.
But they would never talk to each other, get each other's names. And it was interesting. I would pull them together, and many times they would recognize each other. And by the end of the 6 weeks, they're like, I had no idea you had a life.
Yeah.
I had no idea you had a personality, right? And that's what I have found even in these groups that we're doing, is that people show up with a particular inhibition. We know how to be social, but we're inviting people to show up and to be intimate, to let go, to release, to allow transformation to happen in our relationships with each other. That as gay men, we can kind of hold a circle for each other that is loving and kind, and whatever our relationship is to spirituality can be fully incorporated into that process, because it's in that loving environment that we're all going to experience that shift.
Yeah.
I need a pad and
I'm making
I mean, there's so many questions that I want to, you know, interject, but I don't want to interrupt. But I need to write that. Do you have a pad and paper? I have so many questions, so many comments. I'm just thinking about.
This hour is for you.
By the way, I mean, you just introduced me as Cole, but, you know, I mean, is it important to say what I do and where I've been, and, you know, what my credentialing is, if any?
Is it important to you?
It's important to me that people don't watch and like, who the fuck is this guy? What's he saying? I mean, how does he know?
Yeah.
I'm just,
how do you know?
My background is I have a master's in education, concentration on psychological studies. So I love education. I love learning things. And, for, I don't know, 20 years now, I've been producing adult cinema. And so I really do know everything there is just
like
about
Schindler's List and no.
Not that kind of adult cinema. I don't like the word pornography. I think it has a negative connotation, and it's been thrown pornography. It's like an example of using the term pornography would be like if me saying, oh, Jerry's gay, instead of me saying Jerry's gay, Jerry's a homosexual. You know, it's just such a clinical word, and, you know, there's those connotations that come with that. So we say gay or we say queer. So for me, pornography is just, you know, the heterosexual negative normative stuff. Term.
It sounds like we're
right. So I always I say porn.
Yeah.
You know, just like I don't say the word intercourse. I say sex. So I feel it's more comfortable saying either adult cinema or porn. So I don't like pornography. Just threw that out. So I've been in adult cinema for 1 million years, and we've met so many people. So we've kind of had an inside look, behind the scene look of, you know, sexuality and function and love and passion and compassion, and we've been through it all. So I feel like we have something to offer. You know, I'm a child of the 70s, so, you know, I've been through it from the get-go. So that's what I'm here to help in any way with answering and helping with sexually related questions and talking about sexual topics.
I really appreciate that you said that, because I think it's just really highlighting what Jerry's saying. We're just objects often, just kind of, milling
Yeah.
about. But when we show up at these circles, these retreats and workshops and game night,
We're people.
we're people. And we learn, I didn't know about your educational background. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we've got something in common,
Yeah.
and we can relate and talk, and that's the intimacy, and that's the connection, and we see the wholeness of each of us.
It feels so good.
It really does. It takes a weight off.
Yeah.
I can settle because I feel like I've got to kind of go in and be like this and
Yep.
perform and
Yep.
be this thing. But then as I get to know you and see relationship or something I can relate to, I soften and, oh, okay, and something opens and expands in me. And so I hope that happens, and we try to create energy and circles around that when we do our retreats and community gatherings. And so one of the things I wanted to say too was, if you're thinking about or pondering about this, a retreat of any sort, really, like, what do you do? Well, part of it is just show up as you are, because that's how we're going to accept you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Show up as
Exactly.
you are. You don't have to put on the hat, the mask, the
Right.
thing.
Right.
You may, and that's fine if that gets you there.
Sure.
That's fine too.
Yep.
But know that we're going to invite you to maybe take a layer off.
Definitely.
Take the hat off.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You're not an object.
Mm-hmm.
You don't deserve or need to be objectified.
And if
You're
I-
a person. We want to get to know you.
And that's just it. And that's just it, John. When you come in and the armor's on or whatever it is, we create a place where you start letting down your guard, you start hearing about other people, and you recognize yourself in them. And the thing that I feel specifically with game night, it's silly, and I've commented multiple times with him, is I leave feeling like a person.
Mm-hmm.
I leave feeling whole. It's like it's a supplement, it's a dose of like this social vitamin that we can give to each other, and it helps to heal that isolation. I only see myself like this, so everyone must see me that way, and then
It's a fucking daunting task to get to that point.
But
because
who knew that playing Pictionary would fix that?
Right. Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
Well, and I think this is what I enjoy about the podcast is I think the energy that we've created is very transparent, right? Because I think we've had some very raw moments in these podcasts, and that's very deliberate. I don't know if people realize not that it's scripted; it's deliberate in the sense of our commitment to show up, just to normalize the layers of work. Because I think all of us show up in our communities as recognizable, if you will. And I think it's easy for people to project a story about how perfect it all looks.
Yeah.
And so I think to be raw and transparent is an invitation to say that, part of the journey is the willingness to unravel the knots in our existence and to just find some liberation in that, whether it's through fitness or meditation or ritual.
each one of these things we're talking about, fitness, meditation, ritual, is just one way to chip away all that negative calcification that
Right.
Hard outer coating.
we've been
Yeah.
programmed
Yeah.
to believe that we are less than or negative. And so once you work on these steps, you can then realize, you can get a little introspective and look, and you say, hey, I am more than a whole. I mean, I say that because, constantly I see on the apps and online and stuff like that, got very, I'm sure, wonderful people are just like, hey, walk in, the door's open, dump a load on my ass, and then leave. And, I have 20 loads today. I'm like, that's really not who you are. That's who you have been programmed to believe you are.
In order to be anything in the community.
In order to be valued.
Right.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
are so much more than that.
Right. Wow.
We are so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get the psychology and how it's turned taboo and it, makes it a little hot, but it's getting to the point where even the language is really like horrifying. Like, I want you to tear me open. You know what I mean? This aggressive, violent, choke me, spit in my mouth, cast me aside, dress me as a dog, chain me to the
Treat me as
corner.
trash.
All this stuff. I get it. People tap into the taboos and it's a kink and it's fun. It's really important to understand where that started and why. We have to go back into the psychological history and the history of how we have been oppressed as gay men and women and why we've had to go this way and why we feel like we're just objects to be passed around.
Well, and so the retreat then becomes the willingness for participants to show up and to see the complexities of our lives and to share, even if it's just the acknowledgement of, yeah, sometimes I just feel like zero. I also think it's important that the retreat is a place to celebrate.
Absolutely.
And
God knows we need it.
To celebrate and to tap into the literal magic that is part of who we are as a tribe. You know, what other festival has the same color and flair than a Pride festival? Not the Salt Lake City Arts Festival. No.
Not the St. Patrick's Day.
It's close, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
So that is like the overarching narrative, and you know, Cole, part of the anxiety and the internalized homophobia that we see is how many times people say they're so interested in what we're doing. And then I will hear almost reflexive, it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It makes me nervous. I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah.
I might be able to come and handle a 2-hour barbecue, but the idea of hanging out is
Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
It's sad because you feel like, I don't know, it's kind of chokes me up a little bit.
But it's that internalized homophobia is, will you know enough about me to judge me harshly?
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever that narrative is. And what I have seen, and John helped me out with this, but I believe every time we've done a retreat, the folks who show up at that retreat never go home the same. We hear from them days afterwards, like they're still writing this amazing connection. And those folks, retreats we did 20 years ago, there's still like pockets of people who are still connected to each other because they made that first initial connection at a retreat. And so they've started their own little community, if you will.
I can understand that because we're so thirsty for something other than what we've been, programmed to think that we're negative, other than just being objectified sexually.
Yeah.
So when you can present something that's not one of those, that doesn't, fit into those things, that's a positive thing, people will glom onto that and, want more of that.
Yeah.
So I definitely see how important it is. My only thing that I was saying, that in order to speed up the process to make people get to a happy, better place in their head, would be to understand why, the history of why we are like this. Why do we feel, why did the church tell us those things, and how are we programmed in that way? For me, understanding the why and the foundation of why some men are feminine, some men are masculine, why, some gay men are self-loathing and not, understanding the foundation of our history of where we came from, to me is a really important part of cleaning out the vessel of who we are, our spirit, so we can be receptive to these wonderful things that you're putting forth in this community.
Yep. So the reason we kind of switched gears to do this podcast, right, is you're hearing most of this kind of fresh out the gate with no point of reference.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you were a listener trying to figure out this retreat, like what questions would you have about the retreat, or
Me?
Yeah, like what additional information?
Yeah,
would be
I'd
helpful?
want to know. I would. The first thing that I was nervous about, I'm like, is this just like an orgy and everyone's going, and I'm like, that. But when I found out that's not the case, I was like, well, what is it? And then I realized, honestly, it's just about you guys trying to bring people together to make friends and to uh, have value for self, and it's just a positive thing. So at the end of the day, now I know at this point where I know that when I come here, it's a safe environment. It's a cool environment with nice, chill, all different people. And
Yeah.
so no matter what happens, I know it's going to be a good experience for me.
Transformative, yeah.
Yeah.
My thought here then is, if that's our intention, and you're starting to understand that process, like, well, it's not a cult, it's not this orgy thing, it's something, it's about connecting and finding community and finding myself and having value in myself. But how do I get from point A to point B? So maybe Jerry can talk about, because I know there's a lot of question and anxiety around lodge. And I want to highlight too, I appreciate what you said about, lodge itself, as far as, people are, it's hot, it's steamy, it's cold, it's hot, it's dark, and may have a lot of anxiety around those things, but there's ways to still be a part, and still participate without actually having to sit in lodge. You even given options for people to sit up through one round or two rounds and then maybe step out if they needed to, but still be part of the circle, at the fire.
And whatever they feel comfortable with at their own pace, right?
Because we're not casting them out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you're not going to do the lodge, you can't come at all. It's not that at all.
No
Yeah.
way.
There's going to be ways where you will still be part of the entire process, circle, and healing process. So I really enjoy that. But I think there's still some question and anxiety around, well, what happens in lodge, and maybe some of the things that help us get ready for lodge.
I can speak to that for sure, because I just dove right in when you brought me here. I went, right into the lodge. I did, the whole. I did it all, and I was really, nervous. You're in a pitch black tent with total strangers, and I was very nervous, but I forced myself to really try and get in the zone as much as I could. And I'm so glad I did, because it was really a beautiful, wild experience. Like just being in the dark with the glowing coals and with the chanting and the drums and all like the little prayers that are all positive and good. It was just a nice thing. It was not scary, and I'm glad I did it. Usually, I would have sat outside that lodge and waited and picked it apart like that, but I was at a vulnerable, I was going through a loss and stuff, and I wanted something, so I dove right into it, and I'm glad I did. So what I'm trying to say is, people that are coming to this, who have trepidation, you really shouldn't. There's been nothing negative or awkward or even uncomfortable about it. I say go with the flow. Step a little bit outside your comfort level. It'll just help you get to that point where you feel better. You feel good about who you are. You'll get to the place that these guys are trying to take you to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's this concept. Whenever people come into the lodge or leave, or at the end of a prayer, you'll hear this term, aho mitakuyasan, which is a Lakota.
Say that again.
Aho mitakuyasan, which means to all my relations. It's a Lakota phrase that has been picked up by multiple peoples who do sweat lodges. It's kind of like the amen of a Christian prayer.
Okay.
So if you get done saying a prayer, I go,
Yeah.
Amen, right?
Right.
In a lodge, you might say aho, which is short for aho mitakuyasan. The concept of to all my relations is an acknowledgement that, Western culture tends to look at things as a hierarchy, and we're at the top of the food chain. But
that's not really
that's not what aho mitakuyasan is life is in a circle. Okay? And that we are all in relationship with each other. So when I sit across from John, right, John mirrors back to me parts of myself that I need to see. the fire, the ground that we sit on, the trees, the rocks, the animals, the birds. We are in relationship with all that's around us. And Ahom Mitakuyasan is that reminder that we're not in competition with each other. We're in relationship, and that the goal is to find a sense of harmony, a sense of balance. And that is kind of like an arcing philosophy to the lodge, the sweat lodge ceremony, in the way that I was taught. And in the lodge, there's hot rocks that are put into the center of the lodge. The door is closed, and so it is dark. There are prayers that are offered to acknowledge the directions, because in the directions is where all the life is, right? It's also the circle. The ancestors are invited to come. The Ahom Mitakuyasan also includes the spirit world. So that our connection to our loved ones who have departed are invited to come and to be there with us. And then prayer songs are offered, songs that are symbolic of different kinds of prayers for different kind of reasons are sung. And as you're doing that, you're putting water on the rocks and it's creating a steam. Now in the dark, we're all the same. You're not Cole, you're not Nick, you're not white, you're not black. We're all the same, right? And it invites us to go inward. Instead of checking out your bathing suit and your bathing suit, I have to go in and check out
my bathing suit.
My bathing suit, which is looking good these days.
And let me touch on something important I think that we might want to share is, so you're the host of this. You know what I'm saying? This is your home, and this is your spirituality. This is your wheelhouse. So you are able to really exercise your craft in helping people based on your wheelhouse. So it could be, it doesn't have to be a sweat lodge. If you were from Iran, it could have been a salt lodge or whatever. But you get it. You understand. And so this whole kind of a American Indian or indigenous vibe is just the way that you found your path to spirituality. So you're trying to share this through your experience, and your experience happens to be this. That's an important part of this.
And same with John. Like when John, I'm speaking for you, but you can clarify. To me, John doesn't just teach yoga. He lives the principles and the concepts of yoga, and it comes out in that's his wheelhouse.
Great. So that's I'm just saying that's, so if someone listening might say, so why the sweat lodge and why the yoga? This is why, because these guys have tuned in to, I mean, even Nick, his persona, his sense of who he is as a man has just blossomed through his form of physical fitness and nutrition and stuff like that. It's helped him grow literally spiritually to become a better, stronger person. Jerry, same thing, same exact thing. John, same exact thing. So you're bringing these three skills, or whoever else is going to be part of this, are bringing these things to help people get on a path so they can feel good about themselves, and then in turn grow as a person and feel better about themselves and not need to be that objectification bottom, or you know, or not to feel like, oh, no one loves me. Because once you get to that path, you can become who you are as a human being.
Well, and I think it's important too.
But that's, and do I have that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But what I want to add to that is, so you come with all your gifts and talents, from what you do professionally to what you do personally in your own meditation, and Andy and the others who come. We're not just here to entertain them. We're creating community. And so what we're facilitating is we want the best of you to come out.
Right.
We want the best of them to come out.
And then we all grow from that.
We create a cauldron, if you will, of magic.
Tried, not a cauldron.
I tried. But and that's why, again, I think people want to jump to their judgments about, well, who's worthy, who's not, who's physically right, who's physically not right, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no. We're all designed to be unique and to find our celebration in our uniqueness.
Yes.
Right? The queer movement is a movement of diversity. And so what we bring collectively is the medicine. And it may be different. I have not walked your path and you've not walked mine, but look at how much we've learned from each other in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And once you become that, literally that tribe of men that make the connection, everyone has something to offer. Everyone potentially could be a wealth of goodness and positivity, which you would have not discovered before if you just, if it's just a superficial, quick, boom, 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 bye.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the point that we were making in the previous podcast. That is what being gay is so great. That's what being gay is so great about, is that this ability of ours to come together with our gifts collectively and to create this really dynamic environment for all of us to continue to grow, and then to go out and continue to contribute our gifts and to continue to pay it forward and pass it on and build a community, around lifting each other up, around seeing each other for who we are. And that's really that's what's so great about being gay.
I mean, that's kind of what the original diagram was. That's called family. But since we're not, connected by blood, we call it a tribe. And how wonderful is it to have a family that's loving and supportive?
Oh my God, it's wonderful.
When I educate healthcare providers around kind of queer issues, I always talk about family of choice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us have been alienated from our own biological families, which is, there's an assumption and a privilege that everyone has that. But in all actuality, there are people that are my family of choice that I would much more privilege in the room of my distress than my biological family.
Right. And that's a really, believe it or not, to me, that's such a gift.
It is a gift.
Yeah.
To be able to create a new brother, to be able to create a new sister.
Yep.
It's a nice thing to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
And it's so, so important.
And that really does happen. When people come to our retreats, like you said, people leave, transformed. They really do. And sometimes it might just be at that gathering and they never see those people again. That's true. And 20 years down the line, you're still in connection with some of those brothers that you connected with originally at that first retreat. But what I see is that there's a transformation. I think people also are inspired, to do what you just said, Cole. Just, they find themselves and they want to, I can really be myself and I have something to share and it's worthy and it's valuable.
And people around me care about it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I mean, these can be and are the results of gathering in circle like this.
And it needs to be now.
Yeah.
I know that's extreme, but it needs to be now. Now is the good, positive zeitgeist, because I'm going on and on about it, but we are just now at a point. I know we talked about this, where when I grew up, 80% of my close friends died from the plague, and even the peripheral friends, anyone that was older, and at the time I was a young kid, 19, in my early 20s, we all lost every gay elder. Everyone that was older than 35 or 40, with the exception of some, we lost them. They all died. Yeah. We had and I look at it, we had no one to go to and talk. I used to love a couple of really good, close, older gay friends. I needed them to say, what is that? And what shouldn't I do? Lost. That's all fucking gone. So now what happened is people moved to go back into the gay bars. And you're in the gay bars with no elders, and it's just drinking, and the only thing you focus on is sex. So we're at a point now where everyone is not dying. people are not dying from the plague, and we do have guys like myself and you that are older now, and we have a wealth of knowledge to share to this newer generation. So I think now is a really important time for things like this, for groups and like this, to help men, gay men, bi men, and just everyone reconnect.
Rebuild. We have to rebuild it. We have to rebuild it. Yes.
Love that. I love that you said that.
I'm thinking this is a little bit out of context, but we were there, but I still want to share this story, and you might remember this. I think it was one of our first Queer Spirit gatherings, but we had maybe 4 or 5 guys. It wasn't very many. And they were all pretty brand new to this discussion and this dialogue. And we had one gentleman who was well prominent in the community, well known, quite wealthy, and had come out of the closet and left Mormonism and was pretty bitter, got beat up pretty harshly, and he came, I think he called it my hippie hut, but he was coming because he wanted to try the sweat lodge. And in the sweat lodge, because it was a small group, I gave everyone an opportunity to just pray. And in the lodge, there's no right or wrong way to pray. I'm praying right now, right? It's just your words. Whatever comes out of you, by the way, is sacred. So think about what you're saying, right? But
be mindful about it.
Yeah, be mindful. But what was interesting is after the lodge, or at the end of the lodge, this guy said, "You know what? That's the first time I've prayed in 25 years."
Yeah. Right.
And he goes, "I just didn't even think I had it in me anymore." Like it sparked something in him that he had to force down. He extinguished, because originally his only paradigm to spirituality was Mormonism. And here he got introduced to this more personalized, intimate approach for himself that was neither right or wrong. It just was him. And that was a really profound comment for him to say, "I just haven't prayed in 25 years.
Wow.
And I thought that was a powerful moment for me. It's like, wow, like some people that I've worked with are just so shut down to it because of the pain and the trauma. And I think we can own that pain and trauma, and we can transform it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. I gotta say one more thing, because I can't stop thinking about you saying it's a place to practice. I can't get over it, because I keep doing it. And the fact, like we've talked about this before, I'm looking at the mountains now and I see them differently. Like I'm in this geography that used to just spark so much anger and hate and look what they did to me bullshit all the time. And I'm looking at it so differently. And I know it's because I'm getting this medicine from everything that we're doing. But something in particular, we had a barbecue the other night and it was outstanding. I will tell you that the old me would have had a drink before I came to that fucking barbecue. I would have been so apprehensive. They're all looking at me and thinking of me negative. I just, the crazy
Liquid
shit
courage
in my mind.
is, yeah.
But I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't need that. And to my knowledge, everyone here didn't do that was here that night wasn't doing that either. And it's a place to practice that. If you're apprehensive about getting into these groups of gay men's and trying to find your place in it, that's exactly what these events are that we're offering. That's what this retreat is an opportunity to do, is to actually just suspend that doubt and that negativity and just practice, just try, just give it a try. There's no, there's no obligation. We're not going to chain you here and whip you and waterboard you if you fail at something. It's just a space for you to give it a try, and you actually realize that you can do it, and you show up for yourself. It's that beginning first steps of self-love, and it just like it's done for me over these months. I mean, my whole journey in this has definitely been recorded in these podcasts. I know I'm changing as we do them, and that is what you can have too.
Yeah, I really think that another along exactly what you're saying, a really important thing for people to remember when they're coming to these social gathering is, and I feel like I have to say it, even though you'd probably say, oh, people are anyway, you need to be kind, you need to be civil, you need to be honest, and you need to be open and speak the truth without judging people, and you'll get so much more out of it. If you wear your heart on your sleeve at these events and you talk to people, you're going to get through this quicker and stronger, and you just will get it quicker if you open up and you just tell the truth and you treat people with respect while you're here. That's how I feel anyway.
So I want to try something here just to shift the tone a little bit. So we have a retreat coming up in a couple of weeks, and I think the next one's in September or October. And there'll be circles and lodges in between that time, because I have no idea when this is going to air. But we do know in a couple of weeks we have our retreat coming, and all 4 of us are going to be there. So now that we know what the retreat is about, and we all have some responsibility that we've committed to that retreat, but on an interpersonal level, if you were to say, here's my intention, I want to go to this retreat, and my personal intention, the piece that I want to walk away having experienced, would be what?
I just want to help. I just want to help people heal. I just know that I've just been stuck in a place where I've been hurt, and I've been telling myself negative things, and I've just been hurting myself more, and I'm out of it now. And
it's nice. You've been baptized.
I want to do that for others. I just feel so compelled to do that, because it's so. I even at the barbecue, I just go up and I'm talking to guys, and I know they're apprehensive at first, but then they open up when we start talking, and that, to me, that's what it's all about. It's just finally having genuine transformative connections with my brothers.
This shows you how moving and how important and how essential it is that we grow. And I don't want to keep yucking people's yums. I'm not poo-pooing the whole kink thing and, objectifying each other, objectification. Well, I can't say that. I'm not poo-pooing that. What I'm saying is it's important to understand where that comes from.
Balance.
Why you feel the need for that. And then, once you own it, you might say, yeah, well, I'm at the point where I've done it so many times and it's my turn on and now I understand. But just knowing where that comes from is a really important part of the process.
I'll add to that, and even just from personal experience, because like you say, you don't want to, poo-poo any of that, because that may be something that someone does value, and you do, and it is valid, and we do want to validate that. I think what can happen is, in these retreats and these gatherings and these, even our social groups, is that you begin to broaden your own perspective of yourself. That's a piece of you. You don't have to throw it away necessarily.
But just make sure you love yourself first.
Love yourself. We're not saying stop, do that, but maybe just open your eyes a little wider inward to see who else you are and what else you are. Because I feel like, for me, this is very personal too. Doing these retreats, we've been doing them for years, and we've talked about this for this podcast. In this podcast, it's like we don't come here proclaiming that we have all the answers or the professionals in any way, shape, or form. We just happen to have these wheelhouses, as you mentioned, and we're working from these spaces because we live in these spaces. This is how we live. But for me personally, yes, I'm offering yoga, but I'm still practicing. This is still a practice. This is still a journey for me. This is still an evolution for me. So when we do our pipe ceremony, our circles, our ancestor altar, going into lodge, it's not like, oh, well, I know how this works and I'm going to do my thing. No, I'm doing my work.
I'm going to learn every time.
I'm going to learn something every time. So just as you're showing up to do your work, I'm doing my work too. And I think I can speak for you guys too. So you're just not just pouring lodge, Jerry. You're doing you're doing personal work. We're evolving too. So that's my intention in this retreat, upcoming retreat. Yes, I've done this before, but each one is different. It's never the same. And I go in with an open heart, open mind, because I know I'm going to learn something new, especially because we have new people coming, new beings, new spirits are going to be showing up, and I'm going to learn from them too.
Yep.
And we're going to enrich each other.
Yeah.
So that's my intention.
Good intention.
What's yours?
I mean, given where I come from, and the knowledge that I have based on my experience and what I've done, I don't know. I feel like I can help people with sex issues, stumbling blocks, baggage, erectile dysfunction, paranoia, nervousness, how to communicate to people, how to approach the very basics of cleaning yourself out, and why why you shouldn't feel shame about that,
Right.
and don't be so paranoid. How to enjoy sex. I've all the mantra that we've adopted years and years ago was, if you're not laughing before, during, or after sex, you're doing it wrong. Sex is a wonderful thing. It should not be a shame-based quagmire that fucks us all up.
Right.
It's a wonderful thing. And if you understand it, if you can break it down, if you're having these quandaries in your head and you can't figure it out, I mean, I'm not saying that I know all of the answers, but like John said, we're here,
Speak from
we're giving
experience.
what we have to share with our tribe, and I'm happy to try and help people move in past directions where they're kind of stuck, maybe in their relationships or in how they're meeting men sexually.
Yeah.
I'm here to offer what I can. If anyone has any specific questions or something they want to throw at me, I'll try and do my research and be as as clear about it as I can and as non-judgmental as I can. Sometimes, I come from Boston and, we're a little in your face, and I may say things that sound aggressive, but I'm not an aggressive person in that way. I'm just passionate about trying to get that stuff out, and I don't think people should, keep stepping over it and feel funny about talking about that stuff.
I'm only laughing because I'm from Detroit and Sicilian too, so
Yeah.
so misunderstood.
What's your intention, Jerry?
Oh, make sure the eggs are scrambled and the pancakes are ready to go.
Very important.
The whole wheat protein pancakes.
There is coffee in the morning,
There
right?
is coffee.
There is
No,
coffee.
we're here to sacrifice.
No, there is coffee. There is coffee. Coffee.
It's interesting. So, a teaching that has been consistent across traditions that I've worked with is about learning to be what they call the hollow bone, meaning that you let go of your own stuff so that spirit can move through you. And so, and I know, it's interesting. We've talked about this in the podcast. I always thought I had a pretty good conduit there. And when I started working out with Nick of almost 18 months ago or so, whatever, I didn't realize the body shame stuff and the judgments that I was carrying around my body and around my age. And so I realized the bone was a little gunked up there. And I wrote a blog once about the unsuspecting shaman, and I kind of talked about how Nick showed up in this shamanic kind of a way that was unexpected to me. And so now I feel like I'm on this other path where I'm, I got the tools to work through some of that. And I think this retreat in particular will encourage me to deepen that layer of work, to really allow myself to share with my tribe what I would say is very powerful medicine. And the way for me to do that is to let go of the inhibitions, to let go of the shames, and to just trust spirit. And so I'm going to show up in that way to trust that what we're doing is spirit led.
Love that.
Maybe someday this tribe will graduate to a tribe of the mind, because we'll get it then. We'll be in a better
We will
place.
own the temple downtown. And we will make it look fabulous.
With club nights on the weekends, definitely.
I wanted to definitely say that I never met a Mormon in my life before I met him and came to Utah and all this stuff. And I hear all these peripheral horror stories about reprogramming and all that stuff. And I just feel like I want to say this. My experience has been great with the Mormon community. They've been very welcoming to me. Even the bishop of the church down the road from our house, all good. I haven't had any negative vibes from that religion. So I am not. I don't know. I'm enjoying the people of Utah. I feel like there's a lot there. I feel like it just also in Catholicism, there's shit parts and that were fucked up by men twisting the word of God. I feel like the same thing is in Mormonism, but I kind of like feel like they're moving in a positive direction towards accepting gay people, whereas the Catholic Church, that's 1,000 years it's taken them to even just get to the point where the Pope talks about gay people. Where I'm cautiously optimistic and open to embracing different parts of that.
Well, and I'll just add this. We're talking a lot about spirituality, and I made the comment that the worst thing that ever happened to spirituality was religion.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I have known and worked and been in very intimate relationships with people who are very devout Mormons or Christians who, in my mind, have very spiritual lives. And how I see that is their ability to have independent connectedness to their spiritual sources. And what I would say to anyone who's interested in coming to the retreat is, I'm not interested in converting you to sweat lodge technology or any of the other stuff that we'll share with you, as much as, like in lodge, I'll tell people, pray to whomever in whatever way is most in alignment with you.
Right.
And so
that's an important thing.
Yeah.
You're saying, so if I, worship whatever, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
I pray to Jesus Christ. You, Buddha, you pray to Buddha, and so on and so forth. So it's not some kind of a indoctrination or cult or anything like that.
So, some of native elders that I've been in ceremony with who are very esteemed in their tribal communities are stake presidents and bishops, but they honor their cultural ways as well.
Yeah.
In my lodge, you want to pray to Gaia, to Narisha, to Heavenly Father, Heavenly
Henry
Mother.
Cavill, can I pray to Henry Cavill? A
Shaved or unshaved?
Specific area in particular. But yeah.
Superman.
But that's the point is I want people from whatever background to feel like who I am and how I show up and how I do it is as relevant to anything that we're going to offer. So I think if people just go to our website whenever they hear this podcast, I think we've committed to doing at least 2 retreats a year. But if we suddenly had an onslaught, if we had 8 to 10 guys call us and say, hey, we want to do a retreat, we could probably find a spot within.
We're going to throw it down.
Yeah, we'll throw it down and make it happen.
Ball slams.
And in the meanwhile, we're going to do fitness in the park. We're going to do yoga and meditation and baking and sweat lodges. And, we'll have these events with the idea of just inviting people, come sit by the fire, come into the lodge. Come sit by the fire at your baking class or eat.
Yeah. Or eat. Right, exactly. Have a cookie. Have a cookie. Make a cookie.
Come watch Nick work out. No. Right? But whatever we're doing, however people choose to show up is what we're calling in. And it'll be on mindfullygay.com.
It's a new journey.
Yes.
For me, anyway.
Yeah. I kept saying, join the movement. Nick said, there isn't a movement. Well, there is now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That was the old me saying that. The new me understands better now, yeah.
As a way of wrapping up, I want to take it back to Cole because you were asking the questions about all of this. As a way of kind of leading us out, what have you learned from in this past little hour together?
I've learned it's important to tap into what we need right now. We when I say we, I mean, and I'm using the all-encompassing gay. But You know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
without having to go through the whole alphabet. And when I say gay, I just mean everyone. We have been lost, and we don't even know it. And this is a way to help us become more of a community, to make basic friendships and connections that don't necessarily revolve all around sex, because that's all we kind of know, and that's been like that's the base of it. But there is more to it. There's love. You can have a loving, amazing relationship and be married and all that stuff. And I'm saying this, I'm getting out of this little get together that this is really needed. It's an important thing. It's not just like a superficial go out and get drunk at a party, circuit party thing. It's different. It's not a circuit party thing. It's about making a real important change in who we are fundamentally, so we can love each other and grow as people. That's what I got out of this. I'm excited to hear any questions people might have and do some research and impart some. I hope to be able to give something positive to the whole vibe of it.
Yeah.
There's always a way to get in contact with us, just as Cole was saying. If you have questions or have inquiries and just kind of wondering about this, find us on Facebook with a Facebook group. Mindfully Gay Guys is our Facebook group. Instagram, it's mindfully_gay. That's our Instagram handle. Our website, mindfullygay.com, as Jerry mentioned. So you can find us, on the socials. On Meetup, we're on Meetup. Yes.
Yes.
And that's a way to come to our social gatherings, to get some practice around, being social and being in these groups. We have this retreat, and we do invite you to check it out. Come as you are. We want to hear your stories, engage into the conversation, just as Cole has today with us. We encourage that. We invite you to do that. And as always, we just want you to be your authentic self, live your true life, and we'll see you next time on the Mindfully Gay podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Mindfully Gay podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This way you won't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we continue to explore fascinating topics and share meaningful stories. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next episode.